Hope you all can see my screen. So I'll start from the place where we stopped. I think just after the Pali verse. All the formulas of Paticcasamuppada are specific applications of this principle. When applied to the phenomena of our daily experience, this principle enables us to wean our mind from the tendency to rest on the concept of existence and non-existence. As a preliminary step towards this end, those two concepts are replaced by the two terms Upada, arising, and Vaya, decay. These latter enable us to weave the two extremes rightly, Sammaditi, as they are suggestive of conditionality. In developing samatha and vipassana, calm and insight, the mind is made to oscillate between these two terms with ever-increasing momentum, spurred on by the three signata, anicca, transience, dukkha, suffering, and anatta, not self. At the peak of intensity in this oscillation, the lingering notions of existence and non-existence wane into insignificance, since the mind now hardly rests on them. The three signata involved in the oscillation have by now built up a powerful motive force of detachment. So the mind gets wary of nibbida, the extremes, and decides to step out, Nissarana, of the process. Hence he cuts off the thread of selfhood already made slender, as at the stage of neither perception nor non-perception, neva sanya na sanyayatana, the thread by which his mind was oscillating under the artificial superstructure of concepts. As he lets go of selfhood, he touches the realm of cessation, so nirodham pusati, Pottapada Sutta. Thus, the distressful tension abates, dukkupasama, the mental synergies are allayed, samkaravupasama, and the triple process of conceptualization subsides, papancha vupasama, along with the concepts of the extremes, that of a middle also disappears. In short, all concepts lose their significance for him. Papancha sanka pahana. As for the relevance of the metaphor of mental pendulum that we have adopted in this connection, attention may now be drawn to the following passage of the Udana, dealing with the problem of Nibbana.
Okay, one moment. Saman, can you go back to the previous passage?
Yeah.
So basically here, Katakuni Thero has very beautifully points out. So this Paticcasamuppada, as we discussed earlier, the principle is the most important thing. Paticcasamuppada principle. Idappaccheta Paticcasamuppada. This happens because of this. So imasmin sati idang hoti, imasuppada idang uppajjati, imasmin asati idang nahoti, imasta nirodha idang nirujjati. So this is the basic principle underlying the whole process, and this principle can be applied to any two links. Say, for example, avidya and sankhara. If we apply this link, we can simply say, when avidya is there, the ignorance is there, the formations can happen. With the arising of avidya, with the arising of ignorance, the formations also arise. When there is no avidya, when there is no ignorance, the formations are not present. And with the cessation of the avidya, the ignorance, the formations also cease. So likewise, we can apply this principle to any two links, what we typically know as the Paticcasamuppada, that formula. Avidya pacca sankhara, sankhara pacca vijnana, vijnana pacca namarupam. So those are actually the examples, which are examples for dependently arisen, you can say, the phenomena. So avidya is a dependently arisen phenomena of, say, sankhara is a dependently arisen phenomena. Vijnana is a dependently arisen phenomena. So likewise, we can see, so these all links are dependently arisen, and we can apply this particular principle, idappaccheta, into any of these links. So I think this is quite clear to everyone. And then very interesting point that Thero actually has mentioned. Sometimes we tend to strictly recognize each and every link, each and every such link available in this process. Avijja pacca sankhara, sankhara pacca vijnana, vijnana pacca namarupam. Likewise, so we are trying to strictly frame that particular part and try to figure out exact meaning of each and everything. That's not a bad thing. But the important thing is not that, rather the flow, the recognition of the flow. So yeah, I think we already discussed that. So Thero is telling it's very much like if we are to understand the forest, so going and then understanding each and every tree may be an additional thing and maybe sometimes tiresome. But if we know the forest, probably the whole thing we can drop. The whole forest we can drop, or whole forest we can recognize. So likewise in the Parisamuppada process, this is a kind of a process continuously happening in the ignorant mind. So figuring it out here, one after the other, is what Buddha points out to us so that we also can understand it. And he has made it simplified so that we all can understand it. And by seeing it clearly, how this process is happening within our mind, all these links have to very much like disappear. Kaya Dhamma, Viraga Dhamma, Nirodha Dhamma. So these are the typical terms applied for these different links. So each link says Kaya Dhamma. They are slowly fading away. Vaya Dhamma, they are vanishing, passing. And ultimately the whole cycle has to stop. The Patisamuppada, the Nirodha side has to work, the cessation side has to take place. So whenever there is no ignorance, then the formations have to stop. Sankharas have to stop. So the mind has to remain calm without involving with any fabrication. So mind has to take a rest. And then as a result of that, the Vijnana and Namarupa, that interdependency, that the type of this cyclone has to basically stop. There is no whirlpool. Now the whirlpool has to subside, it has to calm down, it has to merge with the sea or the river. Now there is no whirlpool. So likewise, all the following links start collapsing. Ultimately, we can say one would attain this dukkha vupasama. So the complete cessation of the the dukkha. Because what we see is from the samudaya side of the Parisamuppada is how the you see this dukkha being generated. How the dukkha, the suffering being generated when we are ignorantly participating in this vicious cycle. But once we have wisdom, then such participation is not there. So ultimately, this whole cycle will stop and we can simply be in the dukkha vupasama. So that there is no dukkha, there is no suffering. And then sankharupasama. Sankharas are also calmed down. There is no fabrications. There is no conceptualizations. So all different concepts are essential for us to think. Now the thinking has stopped. The mind is enjoying inner silence. Sankharupasama. So the sankharas are not taking place in the sense that we are not contributing to the sankharas. Sankharas merely happening, but we are not participating in their process. They become mere sankhara, shuddha sankhara. They become mere sankhara, and we are not interrupting them. We are not making them as me, myself, mind. Rather, they come and go. They mind their own business. And the mind do not want to get involved. Mind remains calm, quiet, and we can say completely free. And papancha upasama, so there is no conceptual proliferation. We can go to the next page, Saman.
Yeah, Bhante.
Now that mind, so how such mind is operating is further explained from this next verse. So I invite someone to read that part.
Which one was that? Sorry.
That Nissitassa Chalitang, so that part.
Yeah. Nissitassa cha chalitang, anissitassa chalitang natti. Chalite asati passaddi, passaddiya sati nati nahoti. Natiya asati agati gati nahoti. Agati gatiya asati chutupapato nahoti. Chutupapate asati nevid nahurang na ubayamantarena esevanto dukkasati. Dukkasati. For him who clings, there is wavering. For him who clings not, there is no wavering. Wavering not being, there is calm being, there is no bending. Bending not being, there is no coming and going. Coming and going not being, there is no death and birth. Death and birth not being, there is no here, no yonder, nor anything between the two. This indeed is the end of ill. The word Nissita, resting on, is reminiscent of the Buddha's sermon to Kaccayana on the two extremes. This being so, the rest of the passage accords well with the metaphor. To one who rests on the verbal dichotomy, there is mental unsteadiness or irritability. Hence, to him who does not rest on it, there is no such irritability. The absence of irritability brings about tranquility of mind. The tranquil mind has no inclination towards conceptual distinctions of two extremes or of any middle position. This release from the bondage of concepts is itself the end of suffering.
Yeah, so this is a very, very important. Can you little go to the? I think we can discuss this one. So basically, this is a very, very crucial Dhamma, actually very interesting Dhamma, that sometimes when someone passes away, as a crux of the Dhamma, this is being pointed out. For example, Venerable Channa was in his deathbed. Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Ananda went to see him, and as the final advice, this is being mentioned. Nissitassa chalitang anissitassa chalitang natti. Chalite asati passaddi. Passaddiya sati nati nohoti. So likewise, this whole thing is mentioned. So it's very, very interesting, and I feel it is somewhat analog to the Bahya's statement. Ditte dittamattang, sute sutamattang, mute mutamattang, vinyate vinyatamattang. So that statement and this statement has some parallelism. And these statements, if we look at a little closely, Nissitassa chalitang. So when we are dependent on something, when we are holding on to something, when we are standing on something, so we are basically dependent. But that dependent, that object on which we are dependent on is ultimately is also a kind of a constructed thing. It's also a sankata. It's also a conditioned phenomenon. There are various other causes maintaining it, causes contributing towards its existence. In case any of those change, that's going to, that object, that result is also going to change. It's also going to collapse. So what happened to us? So if we are dependent on that, we also get troubled. We also get disturbed because we were fully landing on that. We were fully stated on that. We were fully standing on that. Nissitassa chalitang. Anissitassa chalitang nati. But when the mind is completely free, when it is not associating anything, so this is not there. So basically then the mind is completely independent. Anissitassa chalitang nati, and in the mind not only independent, it has no wavering. Because there is nothing it is inflicting, or there is nothing influence in the mind. So when we are attached to something, what we attach continuously influence the mind. We get happy when that particular object is changing in a favorable way. But we get unhappy when it is changing and when it is moving and when it is changing towards something that we don't like. So likewise, our mentality is totally a dependent mentality when we are lingering with something, when we are attached to something, when we are dependent on something. But the opposite is happening when we are completely free. The mind is independent and we are not wavering. So mind becomes stable because it is not dependent on anything. Anisitassa chalitan nati. So basically mind is completely independent and freed. So now there is no wavering, there is no movement, there is no vibration, there is no any kind of such oscillation because it is completely independent. And then further mentioned, chalite asati passaddi. So when there is no such wavering oscillation, so the mind calms down, relax, become peaceful, and it's now become quite tranquil. Passadya sati nati nohoti. So when there is such inner calmness, inner silence, inner stillness, inner joy, so the mind doesn't want to look forward because presently you are very much like fulfilled. You feel inner fulfillment. The mental evenness, complete well-being is there. So you start appreciating it, you start recognizing it, you start being with it, you start appreciating it. So then there is no need of looking forward for a new event. Because currently you are satisfied, currently you are fulfilled. So now there is not necessary to look forward for a new happiness because currently you are happy, you are fully contented. Everything is received, everything is available. No need to desire for new thing now. So you are completely fulfilled. And as a result of that, there is no any bhavatanha. There is no any futuristic inclination in the mind. And nati nahoti. Natya asati agati gati nahoti. When there is no such inclination, there is no any such extrusion towards the future, any other place. So the mind naturally stay quiet, stay calm, stay still. Agati gati nohoti. There is no wavering and there is no movement. There is no coming and going because it is utterly fulfilled in the present moment, utterly happy, contented in the present moment. Agati gati asati chatupapato nohoti. That means when there is no such movement, there is no birth and death. Now, typically what happens, so when we are unsatisfied, we look forward for some new experience and we'll be reborn to that new experience. We start experiencing that. And that new experience also impermanent. That is also subject to this impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and the non-self. So this new experience also subject to collapse. And then again we go through this cessation or we go through this death. But when there is no such birth to a new state, so you are utterly in the present moment, contented in the present moment, contented in the present state. Sutupate asati neva idana hurang na ubhevantarena esevanto dukkasa. When there is no such death, birth and death, you are utterly in the present moment and you can't feel a self. You are not there, you are not here, you are not in between. So in order for us to feel some strong presence of self, we need to have some kind of an attachment. We need to have some kind of ignorance and attachment, grasping. So those are very much like prerequisite for the presence of the ego. So we can't feel ego when there is no attachment. Say, for example, you are simply in a mindful walking, and the mindful walking also becomes somewhat bored. It's nothing much to see. So all the sensations are almost very much like disappeared. So you are simply walking for the sake of walking, but there is no kind of a stimulating object to the mind. So mind remains calm. So while that calmness is there, you can't feel some strong presence of yourself. That's why we feel bored. Because when we feel some strong ego, then we are not bored. For us to feel bored, that means our I factor, this selfish I factor has a significant diminution. a significant decrease is there. So that's why we feel boring. And we need that to quickly uplift. And that's why we are trying to go for a new experience so that again the ego can be boosted. But if we are simply contented in that very calm, quiet, tranquil state, then you can't find a person. You can't find a self. So it's a selfless experience. You are not here, you are not there, you are not in between. So this is the end of suffering. So this statement is very, very interesting statement. It helps us to reflect, particularly when we are dwelling in the emptiness. Suppose you are a good practitioner and you have continued your practice, and after some time of vipassana, you are able to establish yourself in the anisita state, unassociated state, completely type of freed state of the mind. So while there, you can see whether you have these qualities in your mind. So you are now freed, so you are now become anisita, and there is no movement to the mind. There is no oscillation to the mind. Mind become very, kind of serene. Mind become tranquil. There is no any kind of oscillation. Chalitang asati. And you feel tranquil because that wavering is completely absent. And now it doesn't look for new experience. So that's where we need to be careful because of the presence of asava and anusaya. So we might be triggered to look for a new experience. But if we find a satisfaction, fulfillment in this present stage, then you don't need to. You can simply be with it. You can be quiet with it. You can be calm with it. You can be happy with it. You can be contented with it. Actually, that is why we need to appreciate that state. We need to recognize that state, and not only that, we need to appreciate that. We need to enjoy that. Then only we are very much like slowly establishing it. It becomes our default nature of the mind. And while we are enjoying or very much consolidated that, then we can simply say, and still there is no birth and death to a new experience, new mental state. Rather, you are in the present state. You are in the present moment. That present experience is also not a kind of a strenuous one or effortful one. Rather, it's a very smooth one. It's a very effortless kind of a one. So you are maintaining a very serene state of mind. So likewise, you can do a kind of a adjustment to your experience. So while you are particularly dwelling in that emptiness, and while there, you can't find a self, you can't find an ego. Rather, you can simply be there as a very innocent, just a knowing part is there. Okay, I think that is enough for today's discussion, because the next topic is completely a new topic. So I like now to open the session for questions.
Avasarai Bande, we have 4 questions today.
Right.
Question number 1 of 4. This is on mindful sitting. Dear Bante, during sitting, I focus on the in-breath and out-breath. In general, I can establish mindfulness after several minutes. The breath fades away and the focus comes to a spacious collection of sounds, body touch points, thoughts, etc. at a distance. Sometimes these come to the forefront and after some time fade away, or change to something else as well. When there is no real focus and the mindfulness is spread throughout spacious observation space, is that what you term just be? Much merits for Bante's explanation with metta. That's the end of the question.
Mila, can you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. Dear Bante, during sitting, I focus on the in-breath and out-breath. In general, I can establish mindfulness after several minutes. The breath fades away and the focus comes to a spacious collection of sounds, body touch points, thoughts, etc. at a distance. Sometimes these come to the forefront and after some time fade away or change to something else as well. When there is no real focus and the mindfulness is spread throughout spacious observation space, is that what you term just be? Much merit for Bante's explanation. With metta, that's the end of the question.
We can say so. We can simply say it's just be, or that's what we need to do. Without doing anything, just enjoy it. Just fully dwell there, just be. So if you try to do something, then you are further contributing some more sankhara. You are contributing towards the formations. You are struggling. You are adding an effort. So rather simply be there, enjoy that, feel that you are fulfilled. There is no desire now. There is no point of desiring a new kind of an experience. Rather enjoy the present moment, because mind has reached its evenness, as we already discussed. So while you are there, if we struggle, if you are doubtful, or if you are asking, okay, what next, what I have to do next, so that is also still you are promoting certain doubt, and you are promoting some kind of a fabrication. So rather, what we typically call as appanihita is where there is no any kind of motivation, any kind of a striving, any struggle. Rather, just be, just calm, just quiet, relax, don't do anything, because now you have climbed the ladder, and just rest, take a rest now. So therefore, what you are explaining is correct. So just take a rest, just be there. And by the way, there are certain kind of dangers while you are there. So one thing is that you can fall asleep, because there is no any object and your mind has a kind of a rest. So it's quite susceptible to fall asleep. That is one thing. The other thing is there may be a possibility various sanya, various perceptions, various mental images, incidents can pop up in the mind. And again, that's a kind of a trap. You need to recognize it and you need to slowly abandon it. Again, keeping the mind in a purified state, in a completely signless state, empty state. And the other thing is the formations, various thoughts can happen, as we already discussed. So we should not promote them, just let them go past them and simply rest. Yeah.
Question number 2 of 4. This is a Dhamma sermon question. Dear Bhante, I have a question around the 2 teachings below, picked up from the recent Dhamma talks. The first one is about conceptual proliferation, prapancha, and the details well explained by Bhante. The second one is about a milepost in our practice, which Bhante explains as the release of the mind temporarily from the 6 senses bases, if I understand it correctly. My question is on the connection of these 2 teachings, and if Bhante is trying to establish a direct connection. With metta, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, I mean, without complete, at least temporary calming down of prapancha, you can't stay in the anisita state. So the prapancha has to be completely laid off, completely abandoned, in order for you to arrive that anisita state, the relaxed state, calm state. So there's a direct combination or direct relationship there. So if the mind is continuously thinking, proliferating, imagining, dreaming, so that means we haven't arrived at sort of calm state. And another thing is that even though we are not intentionally thinking, there still can be some what we call the prakalpana, where some random thoughts can be there. Still we can say we have come to some kind of a settlement, but not yet to the its pristine form. Still some thoughts are there, some random thoughts are there, and background thoughts are there. And that also assume that also has calmed down, that's also relaxed, abandoned. Now only we can have the complete silence. We can keep a kind of a eye for that. So this is the kind of a direction. But Buddha basically warn you should not attach even to that. So once you arrive that signless state, okay, you need to understand, okay, this is also a conditioned state. Currently, that's why we better need to understand it's also a temporary state. So that also can change, that also can break once the mind take or pick a sign. So by the way, that picking of a new sign indicates the defilements in the mind. So there we need to recognize, okay, there's a new defilement. There's again an influence coming from the defilements. You recognize it, don't promote it, simply keep it aside. That is how we are allowing this fading away process of the defilements. So allowing the mind to rest in a more effortless way, so that in case there are defilements wants to pop up, so they are coming to the surface, we can then easily recognize them and keep them aside.
Okay, Bhante. Question number 3 of 4 is a general question. Dear Bhante, what exactly is the difference between Vedana and emotions? Are emotions a byproduct of Vedana or connected to the heart and not mind as Vedana? Did Buddha give any advice regarding emotions and how to deal with them? Interesting, Vedana is in the Satipatthana. Do emotions fall into Chittanupassana? Thank you. With metta, that's the end of the question.
Actually, this is the way that I have understood. So the feelings, the Vedana, is the most primitive state of our experience. And when they are there, we start recognizing them and we start thinking about them. And ultimately, it will rise up to the emotion. It will now you feel emotional, and the mind become completely somewhat colored, conditioned, and emotional. Your mind become emotional now. So that is a more gross form. But when you are simply observing Vedana as Vedana, feelings as feelings, you are not emotional. You can simply now say, for example, you are practicing Vedananupassana. Your state of mind is very relaxed. So you are maintaining a very relaxed mind, but still the feelings can happen. Feelings are happening, they are coming and going, and you are observing them in a balanced mind. So they are still the feelings. But the moment that we give a value to that feeling, we get attached to that feeling and we start thinking about that feeling, so then that feeling will be risen up to a more higher level. And not only feelings, now the prapancha is also there, thoughts are also there, mind is filled with various signs are also there. So it's a more gross, deluded state that is more into the emotion. So what we can simply say is typically the emotions are more into the mind and the feelings are more into the body. But it doesn't mean that we can't recognize the feelings in the mind. Say that typically we simply say Sukha Vedana, Dukkha Vedana, Dukkhama Sukha Vedana. So simply we think that is only limited to the body. But mind also can be included, saying, okay, the Somanassa Vedana, Domanassa Vedana. Somanassa Vedana is the mental happiness. Domanassa Vedana is the mental suffering, you can say. So that whatever the type of feeling can lead to the emotion. Either it is bodily or either it is mental. Both can trigger, if we are ignorantly handling them, both can initiate, produce an emotion. So this is what I have understood. And the direct, rather than telling the emotion. So Buddha basically talks about the defilements and the anger, lust, all that. So that anger, lust are all examples for our emotions. But the feelings are merely the constructing phenomena which are contributing towards the formation of the emotion.
Thank you, Bhante. Question number 4 of 4, this is the last question. It's a general question. Dear Bhante, if one becomes a stream enterer, it is said that the path is guaranteed. In that sense, is it possible to focus on understanding the self-view and eradicating that fetter only, so that others will eventually follow and end up entering the stream of the path. Much merits for your insights with metta. That's the end of the question.
Now, typically it is mentioned not the self-view, kind of the personality view. Personality view is a more gross form of misunderstanding, thinking that say for example, this body belongs to me. This body is myself. This body is I am. Say you are in front of the mirror and you see your image, but you forget that this has an image. Simply say, this is I am. It's a very immediate identification of the body as a self, as a person, as an individual. So this is what we call as a Sakkaya Ditthi. And it can happen at the feelings level, it can happen at the perception level, it can happen at the different kinds of what we call the intention level, our creativity level. And it can happen when we are using our senses to see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think. You think, okay, I am the one thinking, I am the one seeing, I am the one hearing. So that all seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, we attribute a self. That is also coming under the Sakkaya Ditthi. Now, all these are different forms of Sakkaya Ditthi. So that's why Buddha explained it in 20 forms. 20 possibilities are there. So 4 possibilities per one aggregate. That means for the Rupa Khandha, there are 4 possibilities. For the Vedana Khandha, there are 4 possibilities. Sanya 4, Sankhara 4, Vijnana 4, altogether 20. So likewise, 20 possibilities are there for the Sakkaya Ditthi to happen. Now your question is it enough to abandon Sakkaya Ditthi, forgetting about the other 2? I think this is the most important part. What we are trying to tell has some validity, because this is where the trap is more stronger. Silabbata Paramasa, Vichikiccha, so those are very much like will naturally abandoned. There is nothing much to do like. But in order to abandon Sakkaya Ditthi, we have to definitely work. We have to definitely practice. Abandoning of Vichikiccha and abandoning of Silabbata Paramasa will naturally happen as we continue our Satipatthana practice. So we don't need to particularly look at whether I have a kind of doubt being abandoned, I have kind of Silabbata Paramasa being abandoned. So it's very much like these things will happen naturally as we continue our practice, and not only the meditation practice, but you continue to listen to Dhamma, associating good people. So likewise, we are gathering some more and more healthy kind of association, so that further promotes to abandon the other defilements. But as you trying to say, this focusing to abandon Sakkaya Ditthi is a good approach, because that is where the kind of the entanglement is there.
We just got another question, so I'll answer. This is a general question. Dear Bhante, if I am correct in saying to let go of sense pleasure, Buddha said need to stop at contact. How is this achieved if craving is still present, Bhante? When Buddha stated this, he was referring to someone with a highly developed mind free from ignorance. Or does one observe the impermanence of phenomena at contact level to stop proliferation? Thank you, Bhante. That's the end of the question.
Actually, even the stopping of the proliferation will happen at many different levels. You don't need to particularly say I have to definitely touch the contact. The contact is the main culprit. I have to definitely touch that, completely abandon it, completely seize it. So, but still, when you are observing feelings, still the proliferation may stop. Your mind become more and more clear, calm, quiet. No proliferation. You're carefully observing each and every feeling. Therefore, if your target is to abandon conceptual proliferation, there are many possibilities available. You don't need to particularly say, I have to definitely touch the contact part, abandon that, or to see how it's arising and passing away. It's also one method, but not only that, there are many methods available.
We have come to the end of the written questions. We have a bit more time, Bante, but if you are busy at the monastery, we can stop the program or we can open the session.
We can spend 3 more minutes.
If anyone has questions, they can raise their hand on Zoom and I will unmute them. Quick questions. Because Bante is actually conducting a retreat as well. So this is in between the Dhamma sermon and the Q&A, I think in the Q&A and Dhamma sermon. So, yes, Samantha, I will unmute you. You can ask a quick question.
Thank you, Bante. Just a quick question, Bante. Following from the last question, I just want to ask, so in the case of the Bahia Sutta, when Buddha said to Bahia, seeing is in the seeing, hearing is in the hearing, etc., what exactly did he actually mean? How to achieve this? Would that be at the contact level? And would one assume that Bahia has obviously attained a high level of concentration? Bante?
No. Actually, it is not merely through the concentration it is meant. Now, if you are practicing Vipassana, you can easily achieve it. I can't say easily. I mean, as you continue your practice, you may reach that. So you still will see things, but mind remain calm, quiet, still, without being involved in that experience. Seeing is merely there, but there is no object that you are particularly recognizing and particularly telling, oh, I saw that. So such kind of statement is absent. Your mind likes to stay quiet. Similarly, when there are sounds, you still hear sounds, but mind doesn't want to get involved. Mind like to simply stay quiet. So that happens because of the understanding being developed within the mind. And one can say fair amount of reduction of the attachment, fair amount of reduction of the tanha, craving also has happened. Particularly the wisdom is the main contributing factor. Because through wisdom, you have seen what is the reality of the phenomena. You see the impermanence of the phenomena, the suffering, the non-self. So when you see that deeply, so mind naturally start abandoning things, letting go of things. Even though the objects are there, they no more become real objects as such. Now, say, for example, typically what we see is mother, father, son, daughter, husband, wife. So likewise, from a more conceptual level that we typically experience. But as we continue Vipassana, you see from a different angle. You see more deeply and how things are rising and passing away, how things are impermanent and all that non-self. All these things are the insights. So these insights, as we grow them in the mind basically stop proliferating, mind basically stop entangling with things. And now mind likes to stay quiet, independent, unattached, secluded. So that secluded state of mind is what promoted. Even though you see things, now Buddha say, okay, you be quiet. Even though you hear things, you stay quiet. Even though you smell, taste, touch, still maintain that quietude of the mind. Even though time to time thoughts come, don't contribute towards that thinking, let them go. Maintain your seclusion. In such case, you are not attached to anything, you are not grasping anything. So that there is no person. You can't say, I am there. Because for the I to happen, this presence of I to happen, self-view to happen, personality view to happen, strong attachment is a kind of a prerequisite. Now there is no such attachment, so that there is no presence of I in the sense this strong personality view is not there. And therefore you can simply say you are still seeing, but mere seeing is there.
Thank you, Bante. That's really helpful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Samantha, for that question. I think we will end the program now. To end the program, I would first like to thank Bhante for his valuable time for this program, even with the busy schedule at the monastery. To all the supporters of this program, both seen and unseen, and to participants for joining today to practice and share their questions. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yeah.
Everyone saranai, saranai.
Everyone, Sanai.
Everyone saranai.